We begin the news at this hour in Nigeria's southeast, where the Imo State Commissioner of Police, Aboki Danjuma, has increased police presence in the Owerri West local government area of the state. And this is to curb the upsurge in the violent crimes in kidnapping, rape and murder in a forest spanning across the Federal University of Technology, Owerri, Nekede, Iagwa, Avu and Obimze communities, all in the Owerri West local government area. On January 24, the command said its operative rescued the immediate past chairman of the Imo State Council of Traditional Rulers, Samuel Ohiri, from kidnappers' den after spending about 3 weeks there. Abduction is one of the most prominent vices in the state and other parts of the country. And now to North Central, where gunmen invaded Koro town in Ekiti local government area of Kwara State, killing the traditional ruler Oba Segun Aremu Cole. It was gathered that the gunmen stormed the palace of the monarch around 7 p.m. on Thursday and fired gunshots which hit the traditional ruler. The wife of the monarch was also abducted by the assailant. And this comes barely 3 days after 2 traditional rulers were killed by yet-to-be-identified gunmen in Ekiti State. Another suspected kidnappers last night invaded the palace of Olukoro of Koro in Ekiti local government area of Kwara State, killing the traditional ruler of the town, General Segun Aremu. The assailant also went away with a deceased wife and 2 others. The Nigeria Police Force says it has arrested 13 suspects in connection to the killings of 2 monarchs in Ekiti State, southwest of the country. The force public relations officer, Muyiwa Adejobi, on Thursday said measures had been put in place to address the security challenge in the state. On Monday, gunmen killed 2 Ekiti monarchs, the Onimojo of Imojo, Oba Olatunde Olushola, and the Elesun of Esun Ekiti, Oba Babatunde Ogunshakim, while the Alara of Ara Ekiti, Oba Adebayo Fatoba, narrowly escaped. The traditional rulers were returning from a security meeting in Kogi State when they ran into an ambush mounted by the kidnappers who were operating on the highway between Ikpao and Okiako in the Ikole local government area of Ekiti State. The police command in Kaduna State says its operatives have arrested 8 persons suspected to be highway robbers on the Kaduna-Abuja Expressway. In a statement, the public relations officer, Mansir Hassan in Kaduna, said that operatives from Tollgate Divisional Headquarters, while on patrol along Kaduna-Abuja Expressway on January 27, arrested 7 suspects while gearing up to operate. The patrol team said about 1,100 hours sighted and intercepted a suspicious vehicle with 7 passengers who were met changing their clothing to seemingly operational ones. In the course of the investigation, a locally fabricated pistol with 3 live 20-gauge shotgun cartridges were recovered from them. The 8th member of the syndicate, Yusuf Danmukudi, was arrested by the Divisional Police Headquarters in Tafa. And still on insecurity issues, the sum of 100 million naira has been donated for the rehabilitation of victims of the Mango violent attacks that left many people dead and several injured. The money was presented by the People's Democratic Party's Governors Forum when they paid a condolence visit on the governor of Plateau State in Nigeria and Jos City. News Central's Chizoba Anyanwe was there and brings this report.
It's 1 week after the last attack broke out in Mangu local government area of Plateau State. Calm has since been restored by security agencies, but victims are still facing the aftermath of the incident. Groups and individuals have been visiting the governor to condole with him, as well as present financial and other assistance for the benefit of the victims. Most recent is the PDP Governors Forum, made up of 13 governors, but only 5 of them were able to make it for this visit.
We will be with you to support you because we know that you are not sentimental. You don't show any sign, and because we have looked at all the issues on the ground, we urge you to be strong and to continue to dispense good leadership that the PDP governors are known for. We really bear with you with this very sorry state that happened to the plateau. But it is a big distraction. But definitely we know you are not insurmountable.
For him, The essence of state policing cannot be overemphasized if the security architecture of Nigeria will be reversed.
We ask the Nigerian government to look at this crisis not a sectarian or a sectional one, because this crisis has been lingering on the plateau. I believe we should be allowed as governors to have state police, because we know the nooks and crannies of this state. Good governance means safety and security even before development.
The elated governor of Plateau, who commended the visit of his colleagues, called for concerted effort in restoring peace in the state.
By the grace of God, we are not deterred. We are also trying to ensure that we build inter and intra-community harmony. One thing I have said consistently since becoming governor is that nobody can go it alone. We need unity across the divides of faith, across the divides of ethnicity. If we don't achieve it, it's going to be difficult for the country to be secure.
The governor maintained that if the series of attacks in the state are not addressed and treated as criminality, containing it will remain a mirage. In Jos for News Central, I am Chizoba Anyonwi.
Meanwhile, stakeholders in Nigeria have called for the integration of youth in the peace-building process in the country. And this was during a Youth Peace and Security Summit organized by the nation's Counter-Terrorism Center in collaboration with several key stakeholders, where they say youths can play a fundamental role that will guarantee the return of peace back to troubled communities. Amadine Oyi reports.
The violence which recently rocked the Mangu local government area of Plateau State, located in Nigeria's north-central region, saw many dead with property worth millions of naira destroyed. Just like Mangu, many areas in the country also suffer from one form of insecurity or the other.
Organized violence, whether it's kidnapping for ransom, terrorism, criminality, or resource disputes, is reported on a near daily basis across Nigeria. It's a tragedy when you consider the potential and wealth and human talent of this country.
Nigeria, unfortunately, has grappled with youth restiveness, recurrent violent conflict, and insecurity, largely attributed to influential push-pull factors such as poverty.
As stakeholders gather for this Youth Peace and Security Summit, holding at Nigeria's National Counter-Terrorism Center, some in attendance say there is a need to galvanize stakeholders to ensure peace returns back to troubled communities through the active participation of youths in the country.
This summit is not just a reflection, but also a springboard for deepening youth skills, exposure, and capacity for peace building at all levels.
It is expected that this summit will provide a platform for knowledge sharing and cross-fertilization of ideas around youth, peace, and security.
This program aims to empower communities in preventing and responding to violence and violent extremism, while also fostering a conducive environment for peace through policy, advocacy, media outreach, and linkages to development.
They say youths hold the key to ending the cycle of violence affecting many communities in Nigeria, as they are tools readily deployed to perpetrate violence.
Youth are the bedrock of society's social and economic development. In Nigeria, more than half of the country's population is under 20, more than 70% under 30 years old. Yet too many Nigerians or their loved ones have been affected by violence. The future of Nigeria depends on youth charting a path of peace, as you are the future leaders of this great nation.
Youth engagement at every level remains a veritable means to fast-track peace, security, and development. I believe this forum creates an opportunity to once again examine the barriers to strategies for youth-inclusive peace processes.
To all the youth who are here present, we see you. We see you and we recognize your doggedness and your leadership in navigating the challenges of Nigeria's environment. We all have a duty to build a safe and inclusive and peaceful society. Let this summit be a catalyst for action and legacy of empowered youth building a brighter future for Nigeria.
With Nigerian youths now being integrated into the nation's peace-building process, it is hoped that this will better a new generation that will live above primordial sentiments and foster peace and unity. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
And to politics in Nigeria's southwest, a former deputy clerk of the National Assembly, Olaide Adelami, has been sworn in as the deputy governor of Ondo State in southwest Nigeria. Adelami was last Tuesday picked by the state governor, Lucky Aiyedatiwa, as the deputy governor, after which his name was sent to the State House of Assembly for screening and ratification. The process followed the death of Governor Rotimi Akeredolu last December and the swearing-in of Aiyedatiwa as Ondo governor. Adelami was sworn in on Thursday at the International Culture and Events Center, Akure, the state capital, by the Chief Judge of the state, Justice Olusegun Odushola. At the ceremony on Thursday, Aiyedatiwa reiterated the commitment of his administration to the progress and development of Ondo State. Stakeholders have called on the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, to cease the harassment of Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara. They also oppose the prosecution of political allies of Governor Fubara, rather advocating a peaceful resolution. News Central's Niyi Omoniyi has more.
The political tempo in Rivers State seems to be rising with the latest conflicting court rulings. One court nullified the 2024 budget passed by the State Assembly and signed by the governor. Another court ordered parties not to take further action pending a ruling on an application to stop the representation of the budget. In the interim, the court acknowledged Speaker Martin Emewele-led faction of the Rivers State Assembly has accused Governor Fubara of misconduct and tyrannical behavior.
This law does not award to the governor any other power to do any other thing other than what it has said he should do. The action of the governor to go ahead and appoint someone and say the person is on acting capacity and ask the person to resume is nothing but a violation of our law, a violation of the Constitution, and indeed misconduct on the part of the governor.
Observers say the latest crisis in Rivers marks a need for fresh mediation to resolve the rift between Governor Fubara and former Governor Nyesom Wike, now FCT Minister.
Wike and his team must immediately cease the harassment, intimidation, and persecution of this individual, whether through the misuse of the police or the judiciary. The people of Rivers State deserve peace and stability. It is important for him, Mr. Wike, to understand that the presidency under Asiwaju leadership demands unity and loyalty from all.
Governor Fubara and Wike have been in conflict over the state political structure since October 2023, when legislators moved to impeach the former. The crisis leaving Nigeria's oil capital at risk even as the oil-dependent economy continues to deteriorate.
We appeal to the Nigerian police as a professional institution to maintain neutrality and not allow themselves to be manipulated by any individual or group to cause unrest in Rivers State. Law enforcement institutions must serve the people, not only individual or political party. We call upon them to investigate all allegations of wrongdoing fairly and transparently, ensuring justice prevails.
The court will hear an application on February 28, 2024 to declare the seats of 27 lawmakers who defected from PDP to APC as vacant. For now, Governor Fubara enjoys his victory over APC candidate Toyako at the Supreme Court. In Lagos for News Central, Niyi Omoniyi.
Motorists and other road users in Lagos State, southwest Nigeria, have called on the Lagos State government to intervene and regulate what they term recklessness and lawlessness by commercial tricycle operators in the state, otherwise known as Keke riders. Now, this comes as the State Traffic Management Authority, in an exclusive interview with News Central, says it will deal with anyone constituting nuisance on the Lagos road. Bernard Akede has more.
They have always been in operation in Lagos, plying streets and residential areas. But following the government's restriction of commercial motorcycles on highways and in other areas, Keke riders have now increased in numbers and in some cases are constituting nuisance. From indiscriminate dropping off and picking up of passengers to disobeying traffic lights and even driving against oncoming traffic. The activities of some Keke riders in the state has now become a huge cause for concern.
Keke might break traffic light everywhere in Lagos. Everybody know. This small bus, this small at your back, so they don't obey traffic light. Police cannot arrest them. Last man cannot arrest them. You know why? Another why? Because there's a money every day. Give it to them. The person will collect money for your hand, collect money for their hand every day. You now say you want to arrest them for traffic light. You can't do that. That's the problem we have in Lagos.
Okay, like me now, I stay in Magodo. So how do I do it? Not all buses entered Magodo, unless these blue ones, and sometimes they might not be available. So the only thing you can do is to board Keke. So I can't really say we should ban them. But the only thing is that we give them orientation.
But the question must be asked, are the laws governing Keke users different from those of other vehicle users?
It's still the same law that covers activities of all motoring public across the state, including trucks and tankers, in which you cannot rule out these minibuses as well. Their nuisance value is increasing on daily basis, on an hour basis. But of course, our enforcement team is not relaxing on his house.
Many of the Keke riders actually do know traffic rules, but in a bid to sometimes avoid multiple taxation, especially by officials of the National Union of Road Transport Workers, as well as to make excess profit, they sometimes break the law.
Concerning union and different things, might be the challenge we will get because we pay a lot of money for inside this union issue. And two, last month, 2 days among when we say they see the trouble us for the road. We not they get rest of mind for the road because of last month and other things. Where will they park? If you park, anyhow you park, sometimes they'll come there, call you say, why you park here? This place is the wrong place to park. At the end of the day, before you know, in our office, you must pay money for inside join.
There's no any message other than for them to make sure that they comply with the transport sector reform done in Lagos State and stop picking or dropping passengers at undesignated bus stop, for them not to ply one way, for them not be converting streets or roadside into a parking, a garage where they will line up and start calling passengers. They should not fly BRT corridor. They should obey the traffic light. They should ensure that at any point in time they are not found on the intersection line.
Lagos road users can only look to the appropriate authorities to continue to enforce traffic laws so as to rid the state of lawlessness of these Keke riders so that unfortunate road incidences can be avoided. In Lagos for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
And to talk about this, I've been joined live on the news by a legal practitioner, Elvis Asia. Good afternoon from here. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
All right. I mean, law enforcement agencies regulate private motorists, but we don't seem to see a lot when it comes to the regulation of rickshaw transportation, which we know as Keke Napep or Marwa in Lagos. Why do you think this is so?
Well, it's a clear case. I mean, it just demonstrates the corruption in the way and manner traffic rules and regulations are enforced in Lagos. One of the reasons why it will appear that Keke Napep tricycles are not properly regulated is essentially because last mile officials and other security agencies do not find them as a worthy, collaborators in bribery. Because what they really do on Lagos roads is to extort money from motorists. And so Keke Napep, tricycles, and other smaller vehicles they don't consider them as having enough funds to give them. And so nobody enforces it. But the truth of the matter is that the rules are the same. The law is very clear as to how Keke Napep tricycles should be regulated in Lagos. You are supposed to have a rider's card. You are not supposed to carry beyond a number of people. You're supposed to have even helmets. And it's even a crime for tricycles not to obey these rules under the laws. So the law is there, both for tricycles and, of course, other road users. But like I said earlier, one of the challenges we have had with enforcement is that we have monetized enforcement of rules and regulations in the country, and by extension, traffic rules and regulations in Lagos. And so that's what you see. In some cases, they practically get monies from these people, and they're left without any form of enforcement. And another thing is that these guys are not trained. You see, in any sense, society, before you can engage in a business such as the riding of keke or tricycles, you're supposed to be trained. It's not enough that you can ride or you can drive a vehicle. You should get proper training. That is not being done. Our focus here is just on how much you can get from them, and I think that is why we are where we are with tricycles. It's not really because the law is different. The law is the same. But unfortunately, the enforcement has been skewed, because of some of the factors that I mentioned earlier.
Well, Elvis, I was going to ask you to elaborate on the laws we have for, rickshaw transportation and as well as for that of public transport drivers, if indeed they are separate, and why we have different operations between these two mode of transportation.
Sorry, I didn't get that
okay,
question.
I hear you when you talked about the law being there to govern rickshaw transportation, and then you talked about implementation of this law and training for rickshaw transportation drivers. But I was asking, just for you to elaborate a bit more, if, there are separate laws for that of rickshaw transportation, the Keke Napep, Marwa and all of that, and as well for the public transport drivers.
No, there's no separate law. The road traffic law of Lagos State, I believe, 2012, it's applicable to both all road users. There are specific sections of the law that applies to tricycles. There are specific sections of the law that applies to motorcycles. So, the rules are largely the same. Like I said earlier, for you to be able to effectively get permit to run a tricycle business within Lagos metropolis, you ought to have proper permits, which is known as a rider's card. I would expect that before you are giving that card, for example, you are giving the requisite training, you demonstrate competence in understanding road signs and the limits, the road, the speed limits and all of that. So the laws are largely the same. There's no different rule for motorcycles or tricycles. What we have seen is the enforcement that is not being properly carried out by those who are charged with the responsibility of doing so. And like I said, they are not doing so. They are doing so because, for other ulterior motives, not because the law is different, but simply because of the financial consideration that is involved that they actually get by way of enforcement. And that's why many of them are left without regulations. Today, it's almost like a tsunami. There's danger on our roads. They jump at you. If you are not very careful, you run into them on a daily basis. So there's the rules are the same. The laws are the same in terms of ensuring that you stay on, on your lane, obey traffic signs, have proper permits. You are even supposed to have a helmet as a tricycle rider and all of that. But unfortunately, this is not being obeyed, not because the laws are not there. There's no different rule for motorists. It's the same. It's just the way and manner we have chosen to enforce because of the greed, because of our greed and the corruption in the system.
All right, Elvis. I mean, you talked about finance a bit there. Just to follow up on that, we do know that these rickshaw form of transportation were introduced, in Lagos State just for the sake of poverty alleviation. Would you say it's time, for them to be banned, or do you think there should be more regulation instead of banning them?
Well, I don't know whether banning can ever solve any problem. What you see, Nigerians we like to run away from issues. Banning is not the solution. The solution is having proper regulations, having proper enforcement mechanisms, and ensuring that the rules are. Oh, my phone has even gone.
Elvis, are you there? All right, we'll try to connect with Elvis if possible. And now to another story about health. The World Health Organization's Cancer Agency have issued a dire warning about the staggering rise in new cancer cases. By 2050, the number is projected to soar to over 35 million, a shocking 77% increase from 2022 figures. The International Agency for Research on Cancer, IARC, pinpoints tobacco, alcohol, obesity, and air pollution as major culprits behind this alarming trend. Developed countries are expected to bear the brunt, with nearly 5 million more cases anticipated. Countries with lower Human Development Index scores will experience a huge 142% increase. Now, this surge will strain healthcare systems worldwide, especially in regions that are least equipped to handle it. And to talk about this, I've been joined by a clinical and radiation oncologist, as well as a senior lecturer at the College of Medicine, University of Lagos, Dr. Omolola Salako. Good afternoon, Doctor. Glad to have you join me.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. Now, from a clinical perspective, what strategy would you recommend in addressing the rise in incidence of air pollution, alcohol, and also tobacco abuse to curb cancer incidences?
So air pollution, for a start, is when the air we breathe is polluted with chemicals, physical agents, or biological agents. And it's important to note that there's a rise in air pollution, which is contributing to a lot of diseases like cancer, chronic respiratory diseases. Now, one way we can battle this from the clinical perspective is for us to continue to educate the public on reducing their exposure to air pollutants, just starting from home. People who use stoves, kerosene, the fumes generated from such devices or, equipment should be reduced significantly. And if you must use it, make sure you're using it in an area where there's a lot of aeration, doors and windows are open, so that you're not taking the intensity of the fumes. Secondly, the way we can tackle it is around screening and early detection programs or initiatives for people who have a high risk. For example, people who smoke have an important risk factor that predisposes them to all types of cancers. For one, tobacco, when inhaled, as cigar or ingested as betel nut, or through the shisha pipe, it allows the system sort of gets addicted to this tobacco because there's nicotine in it. But tobacco also suppresses the immune system. More importantly, tobacco damages the cells and predisposes people who smoke for a very long time to lung cancer, breast cancer, cervical cancer, and so many other cancers. And so for people who are smoking, it is important they are exposed to smoking cessation programs, behavioral interventions that help them get off smoking, because it becomes an addictive habit. In situations where cancer patients...
Yes, I know you've talked about those predisposed to coming down with cancer, but then are there any dietary or lifestyle modifications that can help reduce the risk of developing cancer?
Oh, definitely. 40% of cancers are preventable. So, for example, colon cancer, which ranks as the fourth commonest cancer in Nigerians, is one cancer that, it occurs for some people because their diet is heavy on fat, heavy in fat and oils, low in vegetables, low in, the important nutrients that actually help the cells stay healthy and repair themselves from damage. So having a diet rich in fruits, vegetables is crucial in reducing the risk of colon cancer. And then limiting processed foods like bacon, sausage, and anything you just can't, that is processed, reduce the consumption of that.
Now, what are the most prevalent forms of cancer common in your field of practice? Just to help us understand how they are potentially tied to environmental exposures, and even how can one, or how can one be equipped, to try to tackle these cases and nip them in the bud before they grow beyond control?
So here in Nigeria, the top 5 common cancers, breast cancer is the most common cancer globally, not just in Nigeria. The second common cancer here in Nigeria is prostate cancer. The third is cervical cancer. The fourth is colorectal cancer, and then non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But we also are, seeing the rise of colorectal cancers. And some of these cancers can be prevented. For example, cervical cancer through screening, through the HPV vaccination, which the federal government has rolled out a vaccination campaign for young girls from age 9 years old. If they visit certain primary healthcare centers, they can get 1 shot of the HPV vaccine. And in future, when they are adults, say when they are 30 and they start engaging in sex, if they do get the virus, the HPV virus, they already have been vaccinated decades ago and they have a reduced risk of developing cancer. In practice at Pearl Oncology, where I treat cancer patients, breast cancer is the most common cancer. Again, we do not know the reason why many women develop breast cancer, but some women have a strong family history of breast cancer where someone in their family had breast cancer. In fact, 3 to 4 people had breast cancer. And it's important that such families with a family history of more than 3 people should present to the oncologist, for preventive measures, especially for the younger children. There are certain steps that can be taken, like there are tablets we give to prevent breast cancer from occurring in families that have a strong history of cancer.
Just allow us a little more, into your field of practice. I mean, where do you see the biggest gaps in cancer? Is it in the prevention or early detection or even treatment capacity?
So I think I would take this from 3 approaches. From the individual perspective, in practice, a lot of patients come in scared. First of all, before there's cancer, we're now talking about cancer prevention. As you said, people are not screening. The women are not going for their pap smears. They're not doing their mammograms. Men and women are not doing their colonoscopies. Look, some cancers are forgiving, and when I say this, I mean that some cancers show signs, 20 years before they become full-blown cancer. And the only way we can detect it when it is so tiny, when it's so microscopic, is when people present for their medical checkup. But a lot of Nigerians and, people in low middle income countries are not presenting for their medical checkup because they feel, oh, I'm fine, I don't have any symptoms, cancer doesn't run in my family, what am I checking for? And then people don't understand the benefit of screening and also cost of screening. It is, a bit pricey for people to prevent cancer and go for certain tests. But again, prevention is better than cure. In terms of treatment, people are scared of the cancer diagnosis. So we see cases here at Pearl where women have noticed the breast lump more than a year, but they've hidden it from their loved ones, from their relatives, and just because they don't want to help, just because they don't want the diagnosis, they suspect it's cancer, they go on Google, they search everything, they talk to other people, but run away from the place that can help them. So I would say fear is a reason why people are not screening, which helps us to prevent cancer. Fear is also another reason why people are not presenting to the hospital to start treatment very early. In the healthcare system, it is fragmented, it is complex, and we need better collaboration amongst the stakeholders.
All right, thank you so much for your time on the news, Dr. Omolola Salako, clinical and radiation oncologist. Thank you once again.